Hello everyone, my name is Grayson and welcome to the first real gameplay episode of this tutorial series. If you didn't see episode 0 and you don't know how to play Trials of Fire, then you absolutely need to go back and watch that one. I explain characters, choosing your quests, choosing your party, how equipment works, all the things about the UI we're looking at right now. This episode is going to start with us going into these ruins and getting into most likely a fight, and then this will be a combat tutorial. So be aware this is episode 1, and we will be going very, very in-depth into combat so that it's understood, because there's a lot of nuances to how combat works, and it's not intuitive like other deck builders. There's a tutorial in this game. It is good. I recommend you play it if you haven't for the combat tutorial. So let's go on in here. So let's click on the ruins. In the ruins of what appears to be a human town, you come across a group of humans who have captured a single ratling. Upon noticing the party, the captive calls out desperately. Oh, it's a trader. So we can see that this ratling must have a bunch of like stuff with them and a wagon or something. We could leave the trader to his fate, ignore the humans, just grab some food. In this game, you sometimes have to make decisions that seem kind of heartless, but it's because otherwise you don't survive. And it's tough because, you know, we're trying to save our village from dying from there being no water. So if that requires me to ignore a ratling, like, it sucks, but sometimes you have to do it. But we're not going to do that in this case. We have enough food. We're going to help the trader and confront the bandits and then probably get a side quest to return that guy back to his village or something. So let's click on this one. So that's one of my favorite parts of this game, is when the book opens up and then the ruins, the battlefield like comes out of the book and then the tokens drop in. Very, very cool. Okay, so what are we looking at here? First, let's look at just the area here with the tokens. Let's make it simple. These are our 3 characters. We can hover over them and see their stats, if they have any bonuses to anything, etc. So you can see here, sorry, this is, my cat is yelling. Okay, I'm back. She was not interested in listening to the combat tutorial. Okay, so if we hover over our characters, we can see that she has 8 health here, Frankie, but because she has 3 armor, which as I talked about in the episode 0, is really just temporary health, so she actually shows 11 health. Same here, 10 plus 2 armor is 12, 10 plus 1 armor is 11. So we can see here that each character has a passive, Warrior Taunt, once per turn after you play a card and are adjacent to an enemy, defend 2 on all other heroes. So this character is good at protecting other characters. We have here Goober the Hunter, lethal. Your first attack on a single target each turn deals +2 damage. And then we have our Spirit Speaker. Now, I've never played this character before, so we're learning this character together. Empower. The first card you play each turn has the following effects where applicable. +1 defense, +1 attack damage, +2 summon health. So depending on what he does first each turn, he gets a small bonus, which is kind of interesting. Certainly a little more complicated than the other characters. Here are other enemies. Here we've got a bandit robber, and then these are not just for show. These are, you cannot move over these tiles here that have like physical terrain in them. They will also block line of sight. So something you can get into the habit of doing is if you hover over any token on the battlefield at all and hold right click, you can see what they can see. You see? So you see all of these lit up yellow hexes here mean that I have a line of sight to them. The green ones are there because I have a line of sight through my ally, which you can shoot through. If there was an enemy, I think they block line of sight from each other. So if there was a person behind this person, I wouldn't be able to see them. I don't think. I'll have to double check that. So we can see here, this terrain is very bad. This is our ranger, and he can't see anything from here, so we're going to have to move him around. And here's our Spirit Speaker. He's got pretty good vision. He has the purple hexes he would be able to see back here, but there's someone in the way. So unless a card lets you just target whatever, you might get blocked by another character. And we can do the same thing with the enemies. So we right click on this bandit. You can see they don't have a vision of anybody because they're hiding behind this pillar. And this one can see only the Spirit Speaker. Now we don't know for sure what kind of cards these characters have, though as we see them we will know more. So if we click on their deck, oh, we do know all of them here. Okay, I'm used to showing some that they don't show you. So we can see these bandits, looks like they're exactly the same. So they have advance. So if I right click on that, it'll lock it so I can go and look. So they have advances, they have defends, they have basic swipes. Then they have a knife attack. This is a melee attack 2 or ranged attack 2. And then your next combo strike deals +2 damage. So this card, if you can't tell, is just better than a swipe. A swipe is the worst melee attack. It's just 2 damage for 1 mana, nothing special. This one can be used as a melee attack or a ranged attack, which is just way better than a regular swipe. And then they have a power. Now, I never talked about powers during the episode 0, so why don't we talk about that now, especially because we have some of them here. So on our character over here, our spirit speaker named Ruin, we have 2 powers in our hand. This one costs 2, and this one costs 0. But you can see up in the top right corner, there's no number in the little white area there. So this is a power. It says gain 1 willpower at the start of your turn. This is a free power. The only thing it costs is a card. Where we had to draw this card. It takes up a slot in our hand of 3 at this time. And you drag it out like this and put it on the characters. Some cards can be played on other characters, but as you can see, it's not going to... Just kidding. You can put that on other characters. So how a power works is, you see how under prepare there's a little 4 in a diamond? That means if your character takes 4 non-defense damage, aka 4 damage to their health, prepare will be discarded. It's kind of like concentration in Dungeons and Dragons, or sort of like a stamina almost kind of thing. If you get hit too hard, these stances you're taking, these powers you have are going to be dropped because you've been hit too hard to focus on them. So willpower is essentially mana, right? So let's talk about, let's actually look at this other power first. So this is adaptable. This one costs 2 willpower, which we don't have any right now. Whenever a power is played on you, gain 1 willpower. If this card is exerted, return it to your hand instead of discarding. So we don't have to worry about that at the moment. So how do we get willpower? Willpower is actually a resource that comes from the recycle shrine up here, and it is a shared resource. So every time you discard a card, so for instance, Frankie is not going to be using Wild Swing. It's a melee attack that does a ton of damage, maybe, but it's melee, and we are not close to these guys. So if we right-click this, it gets discarded and becomes 1 willpower. Now we can spend that willpower on somebody else. So for instance, if I discard another card, like Biding Time, I have 2 now. I discarded 1 from Frankie and 1 from Goober, and now I can use anybody's abilities that cost up to 2. That will sit there in the shrine. Now you can always undo things as long as you haven't, I don't know how far you can go back, but you can go back quite a ways. So you can see I can undo all the way back to before I even put that power on her. Really, it's a puzzle. You're allowed to figure all this stuff out and then undo it if you don't like it. Okay, so I'm about to make this a lot more complicated. In addition to discarding cards to gain willpower, which is a public resource for your whole party, you can also discard a card and use it to do one of 2 things on a character. So if I discard this card, you see how there's a little circle going, like a little beam of light going in a circle around Frankie? That means she is activated. Now, activating, there's 2 ways to do it. There's some cards that will say, like, activate characters or something, and then the other one is to discard a card. I can do it with anybody. See, now all 3 of them are activated. Now, what you can do with that is, let me discard this again. You see how there's a little +2 here? If I were to hit this hourglass and end turn, that becomes 2 defense. It's basically 2 block that stays until the end of the enemy turn, and then it goes away at the start of my next turn. So if you don't have anything to do with the cards, or you desperately need to keep someone alive, you can just discard all of their stuff, and then you can see now she's going to get +6 defense. Not an easy amount of defense for an enemy to get through, though I'm not doing any damage to the enemies either. The other thing you can do with it is you can move. So if I discard this, because you see how she didn't draw any cards that actually let her just move freely, like for instance this advance card would let me do. If you discard a card to activate them, I can now pick her up and move her up to 2. But here's the catch. That willpower is gone because I didn't discard it to turn it into energy anymore. I discarded it to let her move. So you have to be very careful with this, because if you do this, expecting to have that energy for something, and then you're like, oh, I better move her, and then you go down here and you're like, wait, where's my energy? That's because you used it. So this is a bit of a complicated system, but it allows for a lot of flexibility, a lot. So with this system, we can set up really cool turns on basically any character, no matter what they drew, essentially. The other thing we can do is, if we don't like our hand, remember that we have this thing called quality. So if we look here under Frankie, we've got her 10 cards left in her deck, 2 quality, 1 quality, and 2 quality. How you do that is, and I'll just show it to you just because I need to show it off anyway. So if I discard all 3 of these cards and then don't use them for anything, don't move her, don't end turn, and I click this, you see these little pips under here? That's how many cards I will redraw from my deck. I can do this a number of times in combat equal to my quality. So the higher quality means you get to discard and redraw cards more. Higher armor from gear means you can take more damage before it affects your actual health. So do understand that the only restriction is you cannot redraw cards more than once per character per turn. So if I redraw this and don't like it, I can't discard them and redraw again on this turn. So if we click this now, I get these. Now I can't undo this, because that's anytime you've done something that's like if it's not deterministic, you can't undo it. So because I dumped my hand and got to see these next 3 cards, I can't undo that now. So we can use a lot of these things. So for instance, defensive stance is a power. Defend 2 after performing a melee attack. That's an incredible power to put on her. Now in the future, as long as she hits someone, she gets a couple points of defense. And the nice thing is that defense will help keep her from losing the power, because if she's not taking health damage, she's not losing these powers. We've got other ones here. Every time you play a card that deals melee damage, gain a willpower. And reach. When an enemy moves into an adjacent space, draw a card. And that would mean we would start our next turn with more cards, which is pretty cool. So this would be cool to play, but it's kind of expensive. So let's just not look at those for a second, because maybe we're not going to do anything with our other characters. Biding time, you may hold on to an additional card this turn. Reduce the cost of all, at the end of your turn, reduce the cost of all cards in hand by 2. It's not bad. If we did that now, we could just end the turn with both of these in our hand, and they would become more powerful and cheaper. So then let's go down here. We've got adaptable, we've got prepare, we've got advance. So we want to get up to probably up to 2 energy to play this one. So if we dump advance and adaptable, we've got 2 points. So she can play adrenaline and he can play prepare. Now this Mana Shrine thing will show you one other interesting thing. You see this number 1 that's popped up? It's showing that across my characters, I am going to gain 1 willpower at the start of my next turn, regardless of what I've dumped. So as you can see, you don't gain any resources to play your cards automatically. You have to make them by discarding cards or playing powers that give you willpower. It's the same with the enemies. They will have a little number here if they're going to be gaining energy, which in this case they are not yet. So they will have to do the same thing. They're going to draw their hand of cards. They're going to play things like advance, move up. They're going to discard cards, move up. They're going to do exactly the same things that I've been doing, but just with a different deck. And of course, as we progress the quest, the decks will get more complicated, more powerful. We'll see boss enemies and things like that. Now, having nothing else to do on our turn, we've spent our willpower. We can't or won't use any more of these cards. I'm not going to bother moving up. These guys are melee, so I'm happy to spend this turn sort of powering up by getting all these, well, powers on me. And then what'll happen is you can only retain, I believe you can only retain 1 card at the end of your turn, but Goober here cast a power that let him retain an extra card, and it's going to make them cheaper. So that's going to be really good. So when we're done, we hit this card, this hourglass here, and then these guys take their turn. So he's going to cast defend, advance, move 2, gain a willpower. This one's going to move as well. So they're just moving around. He's going to throw a knife. Ouch. So that actually hit our real health, unfortunately, but it's not the end of the world. So now we've got 1 starting willpower because of this prepare. And then we have a lot of other powers already active on our character. So we're actually in a really good position here. So if we want to just take a look, prepare, gain willpower, 1 willpower at the start of your turn. It's kind of a no-brainer. Just slap that on. We've got a basic swipe. Now again, these are enhanced because of his power. The first attack each turn does +2 damage. Now he can't see anybody, unfortunately, so we need to move him around probably to here, which is going to be 2 moves. Each time you play a card that deals range damage, gain a willpower, which is essentially mana, right? So that's kind of like a refund. So we discard that one, move 2. Discard this one that costs mana, move 2. And then we're just going to use this power shot for 5 range damage, and it's free because it was in his hand and got discounted. It has to do with that action we played last turn. So you see, if I grab the card and hover, it'll show how much damage it's going to do, which is really, really handy to see. And also show, like, if I would try to attack over this obstacle here, it shows a red hexagon, like that's the one that's blocking you. And of course I can always go back, as long as I haven't made any sort of like permanent actions. I can always go back and redo that. If I was like, oh, I moved into the wrong spot, I can't see that character, I can undo it. It's okay. It's like a puzzle. So we're gonna go ahead and cast it. That was big damage, 5, which got through his defense and a couple points in his health. Note that enemies can also have powers on, so if they do, it may be a good idea to focus them down to discard the powers off of them, because they can also get things like prepare, giving them more willpower on their turns and things like that. So we have advance on Frankie. Let's get a little closer. When an enemy moves into an adjacent space, draw a card. We're going to discard that one for the movement. Remember, we can dump a card and use it either to end the turn and get 2 defense or to move 2. We're going to dump that one because we're going to go into melee with them, so they're not going to be moving adjacent to me pretty much after this anyway. So we're just going to move up to here. I've got 3 energy. Now there's one other thing to notice. Okay, here we go. So this character can move. Now, okay, let me explain combo real quick. This is very important. If you are adjacent to an enemy, and then you have an ally adjacent to that enemy, when you make a melee strike on them, the other allies will do something called a combo strike. So let's say I smack this guy for 2. If Ruin here was adjacent to that enemy, he would also attack for 1. Now, if you have 2 allies around that unit, it could be 2 extra damage. So a single swipe for 2 damage could turn into 4. Enemies can do this to you, and they will kill you with it. I fought a big old pack of dogs earlier today, and I had to be very careful to keep my characters clustered in like a clump in the corner, because the dogs, there were like 6 of them. And so if they got a single attack off on you, it could mean a whole bunch of combo strikes, and that's a really good way to die in 2 turns. So watch out for that. Now, there's a caveat. If the unit is adjacent to another enemy, so I'm just going to go ahead and do this. So if I were to strike like so, this guy will not combo because there is another enemy adjacent to him, sort of distracting him, if that makes sense. So let's go back. If I advance to here, I am not adjacent to another enemy, a second enemy. So if I use a swipe now you see how this guy has a glow around him? He's going to help out with a combo. So keep that in mind. If you want combo strikes, don't be adjacent to multiple enemies. However, if you want your enemies not to get combo strikes, try to make sure they're going to have to be next to you. So for instance, I could have moved the hunter here so that this guy couldn't move up and get a combo strike because he'd be adjacent to me. At this current time, like, this guy could move to here, and if he attacked Ruin, this one would not combo strike because he's adjacent to her. If this one attacked and this guy was here, he would combo strike because he's not adjacent to any other enemies. Does that make sense? It's kind of complicated. Like I said, there's a lot of nuance to the combat system, but you'll get there. So if I do this swipe now, combo strike for 1. So I just added 50% damage to that strike. That's actually quite huge. Now, this character has this thing called Feral Lunge. It's going to attack for 5, but it's going to do something called Exert. As an additional cost to play this card, you must discard your oldest active power. So I have to have a power on to use it. Now, in this case, because this is going to give me willpower next turn, and I am not desperate to kill this guy, actually, he's going to live if I don't use it. So we're going to use it. So I'm going to use Feral Lunge. And then this person would have still comboed. Now I had to discard my power, but that's part of the Spirit Speaker apparently, is playing powers and then using them up. Now I can't use this because I'm not adjacent. I can't use this because I'm not adjacent. So I'm going to dump this card, and let those both turn into the +2. I could move them, but instead I'm just going to let it become 2 more armor, which will highly reduce the chance that this guy can actually hit my health on this next turn, especially with no allies, meaning he can't discard their cards to gain energy. He can't get combo strikes off. This guy's in trouble now that he's alone. So let's end turn. We jumped up to 4 defense on these two. So he's going to put on an offensive stance to do more damage, but he didn't have enough energy or cards to do anything else. So now we want to go in there, bash him down as quickly as we can so his power goes away. As you can see right now, he's getting bonus damage, and we don't want that. So what do we have here? We have the Wild Swing, which in my opinion is a terrible card because at best it's 3 mana for 6 damage, which is just 1 mana for 2 damage, which is normal or even bad. Or at worst, you spend 3 energy to do 3 damage, which is terrible. And you have to be in melee, so you already have to walk over there, and then, yeah, it's bad. I think it's a bad card, in my opinion. I'm going to dump it. I'm not even going to be tempted to use it. Strike Through is a better swipe, because it can also be used at range, and it can also pierce and hit extra things. So let's see here. We have an Improvise Attack, a Melee Attack 4, a Ranged Attack 3, Advance. So we're going to move in close, and we're going to combo this guy to death. Deal 3 magic damage to all enemies in the target area. If this card is in hand, it gains +2 damage every time you exert. Well, we don't have that for exertion. Target discards 1 card for every 2 damage taken. So let's discard Roar. 2 mana for 3 damage isn't really worth it. First, we're going to move you to here, and then you to here. So now, this guy's going to get comboed to death, basically. So if we strike through... See, the comboing is very strong. We just did 2 extra damage, basically for free. Improvise Attack, Melee Attack 4. And again, combo strikes. And then all we need to do here is just hit him with literally anything we have left. Here you go, have a bash. Then he explodes. Alright, so we did take 1 real health damage, which is okay. It's not the end of the world. We're only down 2 here from the event, 1 here from combat. So we get some gear. So we got coins, which will just go into our pile. And then we got a flint dagger. And we can see that both Ruin and Goober have a slot. It would add the power Stalk. Your combo strikes deals +2 damage if you're not adjacent to any friendly characters. So this is sort of if you want to sneak around and be a bit of a sneaky weasel, you can do some extra damage with combo. So instead of doing 1 extra damage with combo strikes, you would do 3 damage, which is a lot. The other interesting thing is this could be a power we put on Ruin just for the sake of discarding it from him to exert his other powers. So we'll go ahead and grab that. And then we have a level up. Now, the leveling in this game remains even across the board. So we can pick any one of the 3 characters to level up. And then the next time we gain any levels, we'll only be able to choose the characters that haven't leveled up yet. Essentially meaning you have to give everybody level 2 before anyone can go to level 3. And everyone has to be level 3 before you can go to level 4, etc. Sometimes you will gain more than 1 level at a time. So for instance, let's see here. So because this character is our linchpin for staying safe, because this is our tank, I'm going to level her up first. Now here's what we can do. This is a really interesting level system. We could click any one of these cards and level it this way. So I could just turn a swipe into a swipe plus, and now it's 3 damage. I can do any of these cards. The other thing I can do is take a class card that they don't start with, and I can put it on here and it replaces these class cards, which is really interesting. So what I like to do with her is check out this card called Measured Blow. Melee attack 2, defend 2. Well, what do you know? A swipe is melee attack 2 for 1 mana. So what we're going to do is we're going to just replace a Wild Swing with a Measured Blow. This is just a better swipe, but I don't like Wild Swing. I think it's way too expensive. When you level it up to do 5 to 8 damage, I think that there's a place for that. So I might leave one of them in here and level it, but I don't want 2 of them. It's just too expensive. So I'm going to replace one with Measured Blow. Now, Measured Blow is just a straight up better card than a Swipe because it also gives you 2 defense. So that's good. And also she has a power that when she, once per turn after you play a card and are adjacent to an enemy, defend 2 on all other heroes. So now she can protect herself and others with a Measured Blow, which is pretty cool. So after the last bandit is defeated, a Rattling Trader thanks Goober for his help. Good job, Goober. He offers a substantial reward, but only if the party can escort him back to a nearby town. Now, we don't know ahead of time where he wants to go, but we're in good shape. We have supplies, and we are determined still, as well as fresh. So we're going to go ahead and escort him back to town and hope that it's not too far out of the way. So let's click that. So you can see now we have a side quest arrow. Now this looks like it's going to take us back to that town we visited right from the start. Super close to where we are. I'm not too super worried about or determined. So we'll go and do that. The other thing we're going to do is click on any of our characters and take a look at this flint dagger. So I think we'll go ahead and put that on Ruin because he does want extra powers to discard from his, what's it called? Feral Lunge, Exert. Discard your oldest active power. Okay, so that means if we can get this stock power on before we put on useful ones like Prepare, it can be discarded as a fee to cast Feral Lunge, which is a powerful melee attack. And I'm guessing he has a lot more powers like this in his level ups that will use these powers. Let's put that on. It doesn't add any quality or armor to us, unfortunately, but it's possible to upgrade it. Let's see what happens if it gets upgraded. Are we allowed to? No, we're not allowed to check how it upgrades from here. I don't think. No. So let's go back to the map. Let's go check out where this side quest is taking us. You can always just click like a little bit at a time. Yeah, so we don't want to go too far at once. So there we go. We can just go right back to this town. The Rattling takes the party to an affluent area near the center of the settlement and soon finds his old business, a large trading post in a building that used to be a warehouse. So it looks like we got a level up as well as we'll probably get something else. So let's level up Goober because I know his stuff better. So we have things like we can upgrade his basic things like Focus, for instance, if we upgrade it would do the same thing but only cost 1 willpower, which is way better because spending 2 willpower to get 1 willpower back each time you deal range damage takes a while to be worth it because it took up a card slot. You spent 2 willpower, so you have to get at least 2 willpower back before you can even argue that it was worth putting on there. So that could be useful. It's also got 8 strength, so it would take a long time to lose it. That could be good. Power Shot, 2 mana for 3 attack to 2 mana for 4 attack. I do like Improvised Strike. I think that's pretty useful, but again, not very strong. Swipe, Advance. Yeah, these are not great starting powers, really. What else do we have here? We have Line Up. Move 2, gain 1 willpower, and your next attack this turn deals +1 damage. So this is a better Advance. See, Advance is move 2 and gain a willpower. This is move 2, gain a willpower, and basically +1 damage. Supported. Gain +2 to all attack damage and defend 2 at the start of your turn if you have an active summon. We don't have any of those yet. It'd be cool to get some, though. Take Aim. All attacks on a single target deal bonus damage equal to the resilience of this power, which is currently 3. After attacking, this power loses 1 resilience. So that's interesting. It would let you do a bunch of extra damage, and then it would kind of go down over time. Hit and Run. Melee attack 2 and draw a movement card from your deck. Well, that's interesting. I think I'll take this Line Up. It's just a better Advance. And I'm going to replace it. I don't want too many movement abilities in here. Because remember, you can always dump a card and use it for movement. So you don't want too many movements. However, Advances are free to play. So this is a free card that gives you a willpower by moving. So you're moving and getting a willpower, which is very nice. So let's confirm that. And then we'll continue, and then he's going to give us $94. I'll take it. We're up to 133. That's a fair amount. We can now shop. We can give him his money back. He gave us store credit. I think I will grab a Mystic Herb. It is nice to have those, and then I'll save the rest of that money. I'm not going to buy these basic crafting ingredients right now. So we have just completed a side quest. Essentially, it took us on a little loop-de-loo back to where we started. And now we're ready to move on. So that is the combat tutorial. Combat is I would say, very complicated for a deck building game. considering all the different ways you get cards, upgrade them, the order you play things, how you can use cards for their face value, for an energy, for movement, for defense. And you can use each other's cards. You can play cards on other characters. It's quite a lot. So hopefully this tutorial helped you guys understand how to play the combat in this game, which is by far the hardest part of the game. And even little mistakes can get you killed quite quickly, so you do have to watch out for that. In my game I was playing earlier today just by myself, I had the warrior character, and she had full health and she died in one turn. They just all dogpiled on her and killed her from combo strikes, and I must have made a mistake by making her get too close. So you gotta watch out for that. So I hope everybody enjoyed this tutorial series. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this is going to help you enjoy this wonderful game. If you did enjoy this, please like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. Come on back for the rest of the series. I will play out the rest of the quest. I will still explain things, but not quite ad nauseum as I have in the past 2 episodes. I also have a Patreon if you want to support me. I do use my Patreon supporters for naming things in games. So for instance, I'll name characters or items or factions or things like that after my Patreon supporters. And also, obviously it helps me make these videos. Put one out every day. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope I will see you for episode 2.